Chapter 5. Change your perspective. We see things not as they are, but as we are. M. Tomlinson. Have you ever gone to the movies with a friend, but you both come out with different opinions? You thought it was the greatest movie ever seen, and they thought it sucked, or vice versa. How is that possible? How is it that two people can watch the same movie and have two different perspectives? It's because based on our beliefs, values, self-image, memories, worldview, our language, as well as a few other factors, our minds manipulate everything we are seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and feeling to fit our model of the world. So again, we see things not as they are, but we see things as we are. In neurolinguistic programming, the term used to describe this process is known as perception is interpretation, which means as life is happening, our brains is deleting, distorting, and generalizing everything that we are seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and feeling in order to make sense of the world. Imagine if I threw an entire bucket of water at you. How much of that water do you think you would be able to catch with your hands? Not much, right? You'd probably miss 99.9% of it. That's the same way we interact with life. As life is happening, it is impossible for our minds to take in everything that is happening. In the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he talks about how more than 2 million bits of information is thrown at us every single second. Again, imagine if I threw an entire bucket of water at you. Our brains can't handle that much information. So in order to make sense of the world, you are armed with something called your reticular activating system, or RAS for short. That is the part of your brain that is designed to focus only on what's important to you. Think about the chair on the side of the highway example you read earlier. Using the RAS, your mind deletes, distorts, and generalizes and manipulates the entire world in splits of a second based on your values, your beliefs, etc., which creates an internal picture in your head, which then determines how you feel, which then determines what you do, and that's the behavior that you show to the outside world. Point is, the reality that you are experiencing right now is not actual reality. It's your reality. It is true to you, but it's not actual reality. This may be hard to accept, but you, me, everyone is manipulating everything we experience to fit our models of the world. Here's an example I'm sure you can relate with to drive this point home. Have you ever met anyone who has a victim mentality where no matter what happens in a given situation, they seem somehow to make it an attack on them? Even when everyone else argues that they were there too, and even have video proving that it didn't happen the way the person that played the victim said it happened. Yes, right? We all know those people. That is precisely my point. Based on their beliefs, values, self-image, memories, view of the world, language, their minds are deleting, distorting, and generalizing and manipulating everything to fit their model of the world. There are 7 billion people on the planet, which means, based on what we've talked about so far, there are more than 7 billion different ways to see the same situation. So the world that you are seeing, the results you are getting, the way life shows up for you, can be changed simply by challenging what you believe, changing your perspective, and creating new meanings. Fact is reality. Truth is our perception of reality, and perception is subjective. Steve Siebold. Values. Your values are who you are at your core. Your values are what's most important to you in life. We have two types of values. We have move towards values and move away from values. Move toward values are things like acceptance, love, abundance, and trust, to name a few. These are feelings and emotions that you want to experience in your life. You also have things like family, health, freedom, etc., that are also move toward values. Move away from values are feelings and emotions that you never want to experience, like depression, sickness, fear, rejection, etc. Your beliefs form from your values, and both your move away from and move towards are equally important because they determine everything you do and won't do. For example, I had a client who once said her number one value in life was love. And her definition of love was an intimate relationship with a man. Guess what her number one move away from value was? Rejection. She said the one thing she never wants to feel is rejected, but she wants to feel love. Can you see how these two values conflict? Because she's not willing to feel the rejection, she will never really step fully into a relationship and give all of herself, which means she is denying herself the one thing she craves the most, love. Side note, the act of self-betrayal is when you know you could do something, you know you should do it, but you won't. Well, in order to justify why you're not doing something you know you could and should do, you have to make up reasons why you won't. That means you have to make someone or something else the enemy. So in the example I just gave above with the former client, in order for her to justify why she wouldn't open up all the way up in the relationship to receive the love she wants because she's afraid of rejection, she has to come up with all the reasons to justify her decision not to. And in order to do that, she has to find everything she can wrong with him, and based on her beliefs, values, etc., she manipulates everything he says and does in order to fit her narrative. It is really important to understand what your values are in every area of life. But then you must get more specific. What is most important to you in relationships? What is most important to you in health? What is most important to you in career? What is most important to you in family? What is most important to you in spirituality? Once you have your values written, it is extremely important to then write your definition of those values, because that's where some of your beliefs come from. What do you believe to be true about these values? Knowing the definition of your values is also important because your definition is different from the next person. You and I could both have the same value of family on our list, but depending on the context, we can have two different definitions of what family is. This is also crucial when you're in a relationship. The reason why you and your partner aren't getting along and are constantly fighting is because you either have two different values or different definitions of the same values. If you really want to understand who you are and why you make the decisions that you make, if you really want to take control so you can live your best life, understanding your values and your definition of those values in each area of life is one of the most important things you could ever do. Your values will tell you why you do certain things and why you avoid certain things. Create new meanings. Nothing in life has meaning except the meaning we choose to give it, and meanings equal your quality of life. In my story, I shared that I attended 14 different schools between kindergarten and 12th grade. As you can imagine, that took a toll on my self-image. Being the new kid every year was hard. I never really knew where I fit in. Depending on what the kids were like in my new school, I would try to change up my appearance or accent in order not to feel so different. One day I was on the phone sharing this with my coach, Michael, and we were discussing my self-image problem. When I mentioned this story to him, he asked, "What are you making this mean about you?" After taking a moment to myself to really reflect on the question, I answered that I am fake, a phony, and a fraud because I'm always changing. However, it was his next question that changed my life. He asked, "What else could it mean?" Oh my God. First of all, up until this conversation, I had never been asked what I was making a certain experience mean, which gave me some clarity. But to ask me what else could it mean was a game changer because it opened up my narrow mind to other possibilities. I was so taken aback by the question, it took me several minutes to answer. Then I said, it could mean I'm adaptive. It could mean no matter where you drop me off in the world, I will thrive. It could mean I am powerful because I am able to go with the flow in different situations and when around different cultures. That would mean my ability to adapt is a skill and a necessary one. Then I thought to myself, that makes me a very powerful person. Do you see the difference? The situation from my past did not change. But when I changed what my past meant in my mind, my entire self-image changed. Jack Canfield, in his book, The Success Principles, gave a formula for life. He said, E plus R equals O, which means event plus reaction equals outcome. The event in this equation is life, and the outcome is your results. The only thing in this equation that you actually have control over is your reaction. Now allow me to tweak this a little bit for the purpose of this section. L plus M equals Q. Life plus meanings equals quality of life. There is no such thing as good experiences or bad experiences. There is just life experiences. What determines whether you classify an event as a good experience or bad experience is the meaning that you choose to give it. That meaning will determine the quality of life you experience going forward. Tony Robbins points out that when an event occurs, your brain will ask itself 3 questions. What is it? What does this mean? What do I do? Depending on how you answer these 3 critical questions at any given moment will affect your quality of life going forward. If you change the meaning of the event, you automatically change how your brain responds. Meanings are just truths that can be altered. Remember from before? Fact is reality. Truth is our perception of reality, and perception is subjective. By challenging what you believe, changing your perspective, and creating new meanings, you create an entirely new world for yourself. Even walking into the same situations that you used to walk into will seem like an entirely new situation. I once had a client who could not stand her mother. She said as a child, her mother was never around, always working. The meaning that she gave this was, I guess she just did not want to be around me. And if she didn't want to be around me, then why would I want to be around her now? Can you imagine what her interaction with her mother must have been like? Yeah, you guessed it. They were always fighting and arguing. Whenever her mother entered the room, it would make her feel some type of way inside. Well, after hearing all about the horrible things she had to say about her mother, I asked her a simple question. What else could your mom working so much mean? After several minutes, she replied, well, I guess it could be she was doing her best to take care of me as a single mom. It could mean that she was working to make sure I had everything I needed, which I did, she said. And she went on and on. Pretty soon, I began to watch her body go from super tense with anger to completely calm. I also began to notice her eyes water up as her new reality began to set in. I'll never forget her looking up at me and saying, damn, I need to call my mom and apologize for how I've been treating her all these years. Take control of your emotions. Have you ever asked yourself, why do you even have emotions? I grew up loving Star Trek. Vulcans were really appealing to me because they didn't feel emotion. They were logical only. But me, I always felt like my emotions were torturing me. Growing up, I suffered from really bad anger issues and depression that carried over into my adult life. Throughout my journey to change, I began to search and look for ways to control my emotions. I heard becoming an emotionally intelligent person was possible, and I wanted to learn how. Most of the things that happen in the world, the violence, the hatred, the vindictiveness, and the depression, just to name a few, are all because as a society, we are never taught how to control our emotions. We were never taught what the purpose of them are. Think about what your life would look like right now if you had emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to be aware, control, and express your emotions. What would life be like if you knew how to use your emotions instead of allowing your emotions to use you? Your emotions have a purpose. Your emotions are here to serve you, not harm you. We don't have emotions just because it was God's sense of humor and a way to torture us. Your emotions were given to you biologically for a reason. Your emotions were given to you as a GPS system, as a guide to navigate through life and to point you in a direction to learn life lessons and take actions you need to take. Think about something in the past that you used to be pissed off about, sad about, or felt guilty about in the past that you're no longer upset, sad, or feel guilty about. Why do you think the reason is you're no longer feeling that way about it? For most people, it is because they came to a little conclusion or an understanding. Maybe it was, I can't control other people. Or maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you did the best you could. Whatever it is, more than likely, you came to a conclusion or what I call a lesson. And once you learn that lesson, the emotion automatically let go. Your mind can't hold on to an emotion and a positive lesson at the same time. Both can exist in the same place. Once you learn the positive lesson, the emotion automatically says, let's go. Emotion is a feeling that something is true determined by your thinking. Meaning, once you challenge your belief, change your perspective, and create a new meaning about a specific memory or situation, your emotion towards it begins to change automatically. Each emotion has a specific definition or a specific direction that you're supposed to go in when you feel that emotion. For instance, the emotion of anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. The definition of displeasure is a feeling of disapproval. The definition of hostile is active warfare. The definition of annoyance is irritation. Simply put, if I'm feeling angry, that simply means that I disapprove of something that was done or feeling like I'm being attacked. Or in Mr. Anthony Robbins' words, a signal to the brain that someone or something is violating one of your values. If you're feeling attacked, it's because you are feeling like your values are being attacked. Understanding the definition of this emotion means when you feel angry, instead of flying off the rails now because you don't know what to do with all this rage that you are feeling on the inside, you can sit and navigate through it. You can now use it as a GPS system, like this. Me talking to myself. I'm feeling angry. Okay, anger about what? I disapprove. Disapprove of what? I disapprove of the way Johnny was talking to me. Okay, so what is my value in relation to this? Well, I value respect. Respect meaning that I want to be talked to like an adult. And so I'm feeling angry because Johnny is violating or attacking my value of respect by talking to me like a child. I don't feel like I'm being respected right now. Okay, so what can I do? Well, I could stand up for myself and have a conversation with Johnny and set a boundary, a lesson. Or I could not talk to Johnny anymore. Either way I choose, I win. This is called responding instead of reacting. My point is that once you have the definition of the emotion, you can explain the emotion. You can then use that emotion for what it was biologically designed for, a GPS system designed to point you in a direction of a positive lesson or a learning that you're supposed to get or an action you need to take. Your emotions are your friend, and as your friend, are here to guide you through life. Let your negative emotions lead you in a positive direction. Big Tommy Burns, founder and CEO of Beast of the Bay, and one of my dearest friends.